Big signings this week. Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliot, star running backs, find new homes. What does it mean for those teams in New England, New York, and your fantasy teams, more importantly? On today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Shout out to the everydayers out there. You can be one. Just subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And by the way, get those questions in for this week's mailbag episode in the YouTube comments or at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL on the socials. All right. Big news this week is some veteran running backs finding new squads. And Dalvin Cook signs a one-year contract with the New York Jets. And he gets a little bit more money than Zeke Elliot gets with the New England Patriots. So let's start with Dalvin and the Jets. I found it interesting that Breece Hall, immediately I was like, okay, this is probably bad news for Breece Hall. Maybe his recovery, the Jets don't trust it. And they activated Breece Hall like instantly right after they signed Dalvin Cook too. So you see this as a two-headed monster? Do you see this as a hedge just in case? This is a team that doesn't want an injured running back to derail their big hopes this year in New York.
Probably all the above. I mean, I don't know how contrived or planned it was to kind of throw Hall a bone and activate him the same day. Like, that can't be a coincidence is all I'm saying. You know,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like okay, I mean, that's good news. Everybody's hunky-dory. We're all unicorns and rainbows and blah, blah, blah. So I do think they are slightly concerned, at least, with Hall's recovery. However, and I also thought that when they drafted Ibukanda out of Pitt too, like I'm like, they don't need another back. They have Michael Carter in the mix as well. It's like that seemed like a little bit of a red flag back then. But we also know a few things. Like let's not forget the NFC North connection here. I mean, Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur played against Cook twice a year, understand his impact on the game. And as important to that is those Green Bay days, they had Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon and used them together at times. We saw pony packages with the two of them in the game. And Hall and Cook are both really good receivers, both kind of, I would say, Aaron Jones level receivers, which I mean is a compliment. And Cook's not a young man, and they're in it to win it. And, I do think the money says volumes, though. I mean, they really wanted him. That's big bucks for a back. I mean, that's not that much less than Saquon's getting and guys like that for a year.
Per year. Zeke Elliott getting 1 year, $6 million in New England. Real quick on the backfield now in New York, from a fantasy perspective, definitely limits the upside for Breece Hall because Cook is going to be involved. And the question is he going to be the back early in the season? Do the Jets worry about Breece Hall? And is it going to be a straight committee? I would assume Breece Hall's still the starter and you have a veteran backup, but I mean, it might creep towards 50-50 in the carries department. Yeah. They're both good receiving the football. So it's not like you can count on one to have a much bigger role in the passing game right now than the other. And we'll see what that ends up looking like for them. Maybe they trust the veteran more on third downs in Cook. Maybe they trust the more dynamic runner and receiver in Breece Hall, just on his younger legs, but they're not fresher legs necessarily coming off an ACL. So really interesting there. And it really limits, I think, the high end impact that probably fantasy owners were hoping they were going to get in year two from Breece Hall. And unless one of them gets hurt, then the other guy's super valuable all of a sudden.
No question. So I've been giving this a lot of thought, and it wasn't long ago we went down my running back ranks. And at that time, and really up until the signing, I had Hall somewhere between like 11 and 13. He was like in the Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kenneth Walker neighborhood for fantasy. And Dalvin Cook, I pretty much just kind of had sitting on the side, hoping he ended up in Miami or something like that, somewhere there where he didn't have to fight anyone for competition. Now, maybe I'm overreacting, but I'm kind of avoiding both players for fantasy. And I have Cook at 19, Hall at 22. Like, who would you have higher?
I would have Hall higher.
Would you?
But I don't know.
I get over the money.
I feel like this is a sign that, maybe he's not going to miss weeks or anything because he has been activated, Breece Hall, but that they don't trust where he's going to be. And usually it takes a full calendar year to be back or more. The second year after an ACL is when you're really, really 100%. So just the uncertainty there and leaning on the veteran running back, I can't imagine Cook is like not involved, and they gave him money that would indicate that he's going to be involved. And so that worries me for both of them because, there's no reason to keep both of them off the field. Like there's like Cook is a guy's like, oh, we're not going to use him now after we signed him. And for Breece Hall, it's like, oh, we got Cook, so we're not going to use this, potential star running back that we drafted last year in the second round. So they're both going to be involved, limits their upside. It's going to be hard to draft either one at their current ADP.
I know. Yeah, I'm avoiding, to be honest, and it's a blow for fantasy. I think their thoughts on the whole subject are, we got 17 games ahead of us, hopefully 3 more on top of that in the playoffs, and we're going to need more than what we have to get through all that and get to our goals. So
yeah, they went through camp and they're like, well, we can't just end up in week 8 or week 1 and it's Carter and Abanaconda. Like that's not going to cut
exactly.
More. So it's smart to have a stable of running backs in the NFL. Who knows that better than anybody? It's Bill Belichick. And
real quick, and the other thing too is if you're
Bill Belichick. So Ramondre Stevenson stock, where's that for you now that Zeke Elliott signs with the Pats?
One more nugget with the Jets though, and I meant to say this to start the show. Dalvin Cook is phenomenal in pass protection. Well, we don't want Rodgers getting hit with some rookie or second-year running back not knowing the protections too. You know what I mean? Like that stuff's really important to attack, to protect the major investment. Zeke also is really good in protection, but this one doesn't quite add up to me. Like I didn't move Ramondre Stevenson at all on my list. I mean, he's still my 9th back. Maybe I'll regret that for fantasy, and Zeke Elliott will be the goal line back and end up with Jamal Williams like season, just stealing from everybody else. But I don't think Elliott moves the needle for me, and frankly, I'm shocked he's making as much as he is.
I'm out on all of them.
Really?
No, actually, who is helped the most by all of this is Zeke Elliott, because Zeke Elliott was on the forgotten list, and in fact, I drafted Dalvin Cook in an Underdog best ball draft. Like the day before, it's a slow draft, and it was like 9 hours before he signed. I drafted him because I just didn't like what else was there on the board for me. I don't know if his stock is a ton higher because his role isn't clear, but I feel good about drafting him there because of the talent, and where he ended up would probably be an opportunity that he could even be an RB. If he ends up being one of the top 12 running backs in the NFL this year, fantasy wise, you're not going to be shocked with Dalvin Cook. With Zeke, I don't feel that way about him. No. You didn't have to draft him anywhere near that area anyway. And just knowing what's going on with the Patriots, it's funny because all offseason is like, man, the Patriots are really going to go with one guy. Nope, they're not. They never do. They will not. Bill Belichick will never go with one guy. And I think it really hurts the potential ceiling for Ramondre Stevenson because he's going to get vultured for touchdowns, vultured for some passing down work. And Zeke's going to work in. Is Zeke going to be awesome? Is it going to be a 50-50 split? No, I don't think so. But we've just seen it much with the Patriots. They use a lot of running backs, and they
do. And I had some high hopes. I mean, I know this is down the line, but I had some high hopes for Pierre Strong. It's just like stacked at the back of your dynasty roster.
You had to draft Pierre Strong higher than Zeke, and now I wouldn't.
Right. I thought Pierre Strong might be Vereen or White or one of those type of guys for them. And I guess he still could be, and then it's a 3-headed backfield, but this muddy things for sure.
And that's the thing, you never know because you think it's going to be, 50% Ramondre, 25% Zeke, 15% Strong, and then you end up with Strong getting more carries than both of them in week 4 all of a sudden out of nowhere, and then he disappears after that. So you just never know with the Patriots. And
no, you don't.
I hate it. I hate it for Ramondre Stevenson's stock. Still good running back. He's going to have value. Just takes a big hit.
You're right. I mean, and when we look back at the Belichick era, I bet last year's the anomaly where there was only one back, and that was kind of by default. But it's just not what he wants to do.
I mean, and we're talking fantasy here. I think both are smart signings by the teams. Short 1-year contracts for running backs. Get a veteran that can handle everything you need, every down that you need. Cover yourself for injuries that happen at the position, and you wonder why it's hard for Barkley, hard for Josh Jacobs to get these big long-term deals. It's like, well, anybody could just sign Dalvin Cook for 1 year. You're fine.
Fournette or Kareem Hunt. I mean, there's
still guys out there.
Right.
All right. There's some injuries around the NFL. Some players being activated. Breece Hall was one of those, another rookie activated, and Anthony Richardson. I went back and watched a lot of the quarterbacks for week 1 preseason, and I've got some big takes, Matt.
Cool. Let's go.
Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. That's what it's all about. Men think losing their hair is inevitable. Take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-backed hair growth supplement for men. Nutrafol's the number 1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. They're drug-free. Patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. So none of those side effects with Nutrafol. All you got to do is go to Nutrafol.com/men and take their health quiz and identify your causes for some potentially thinning hair and get thicker where you need it. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for better, healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. That's spelled Nutrafol, Nutrafol.com/men, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Okay, Matt, some injuries around the league, and it's looking like we've lost. I think it's been pretty good camp. There hasn't been too many injuries that have plagued teams right now, and you knock on wood because it could happen at any moment to anybody, whether it's practice or games. But Marlon Humphrey is looked like he's going to be out for a little while. It's not season ending, but he has a foot injury. He's going to have surgery, it looks like today sometime, Wednesday, and he'll be out for over a month, which means he's going to miss some regular season action.
This is huge for them, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're listing Ravens you don't want to lose, there aren't many above him, in my opinion. And here's why. I mean, first of all, I think their change in offense will go well. I do. I mean, I think it's the right move, but I also think the first month might have some growing pains. I mean, there's no team in the league changing scheme more dramatically than the Ravens, so that just doesn't come overnight. But I do think that's a really good move. They did the same thing on defense last year. I mean, Wink Martindale was the D coordinator there for a long time, and he was blitz, leave my corners on islands. And last year was the opposite. Last year was 4-man pressures, simulated pressures, and mixed results. And I've been saying all along before this injury, and it's not because I'm a Steeler fan, the dreaded Ravens, but you look at their depth chart, I thought their defensive line was very suspect. Your Ajabo and Owe might be great. They might be. I mean, we haven't seen enough from them. Ajabo only played 24 snaps last year. And I think their defensive tackle rotation, minus Matabuke, who's a good player, is also kind of blah. I mean, like their defensive front, if you're only going to rush 4, isn't, game changing. And I also think, and there's been a lot of talk that they've been in the hunt for another corner before this injury. And Humphrey, I thought, took a little bit of a step back last year, but he's a really good player. He's very adept outside or the slot. And I don't know why, but the rumblings out of Baltimore were, we don't want him in the slot anymore. Maybe he's get so beat up there. No one thinks about that. Slot receivers and slot corners get the crap beat out of them. They have to tackle Derrick Henry and take on guards,
they're like trees. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're the littlest guy in the forest, So they wanted to put him outside, and they really don't have a great slot option to make that happen. What they did was use Kyle Hamilton there last year as a big slot, but they want him to be a safety. So the fact that Humphrey can do both at a high level had a lot of value. I thought he was their best corner, and they don't really have a replacement. They kind of got Rock Ya-Sin late in the process, but I would be very worried about the defense overall.
Really big year for the year two guys, the rookies last year. You mentioned Ojabo, Travis Jones in the middle is the prospect I liked. I loved the Ravens draft in 2022, but a big year for those guys to step up in year two because they're counting on some young players to fill in some pretty big roles there.
Absolutely. And I loved their draft too, and I still think I do, Linderbaum and Hamilton and those guys. But if you look, since Ozzie hung it up, their draft hasn't yielded the results that you think on draft day. Mel always gives a good grade, and they always have all these 5 fourth-round picks and all these comp picks. They haven't gotten a ton out of the draft the last 3 years or so. Like you're saying, these guys need to step up now.
Right, and we haven't seen it yet with Oweh and just some traitsy guys, but some of these guys got to hit and be more traits and more than traits and be football players.
100%. That defense worries me in a really competitive division.
Good news for the Raiders. Tyree Wilson, their first-round draft pick, has been activated off the PUP list. So what we're seeing this week, Matt, is a lot of teams. It really feels like this is a serious week in the NFL schedule. Teams are getting serious, signing veteran players, getting ready to play real football right now as they get ready for preseason week number 2.
Yeah, well said. I mean, that is the vibe you're getting this week. We got one game under our belt. We've been protecting some of these guys a little bit, Breece Hall, Wilson, these type of dudes that are highly valuable, but they're young and we need to get them some playing time, so we need to gear them up for opening day, maybe get some preseason reps under their belt too. And boy, we have a couple holes. Let's go sign some people because I think you're right. I think coaches are way more conscious than ever about protecting their star players and not beating them up too much in camp, let alone in preseason games. But this week we've seen a couple injuries. The Bucs just lost their third receiver, Russell Gage. He's out for the year, and they don't have a lot else. At Evans' age, at Godwin's age, could they be trade candidates? It doesn't sound like much to lose Russell Gage for the year, but they don't have a lot of options.
Yeah, it's a big deal. You start to get real quick in this league. So depth is important, and depth is going to play a factor for a lot of football teams. So you hate to see that. There's some good injury notes, but some bad news as well. Russell Gage, out for the year now. And
one good injury note I want to mention, which really has me perplexed for fantasy, is news came out. They've been rumblings about this, and I still wouldn't believe it. Javonte Williams is going to play this week. I thought he was going to miss a huge chunk of, have a J.K. Dobbins start to his season. Now, I love that player. If he looks like himself this week, I might skyrocket him up my fantasy boards.
That is a sneaky one. That's one of the big things you can do, whether you're drafting best balls right now or preparing for your draft. Sometimes it might normalize by the time you're drafting on Labor Day or something like that, because some player gets back and you see something in preseason, it really changes rankings. But it's hard for whatever the preseason spring rankings were for whatever, if you draft on one platform versus another, it's hard for someone like Javonte Williams, who could be a league-winning type player, if he's what everybody was hoping was going to be for their team last year, who I drafted in the Peacock and Williamson Fantasy League. I think I drafted at the turn. Because I think I had the first or second pick and I drafted at the turn Javonte Williams, Kyle Pitts. It didn't turn out great for me last year in that league.
I think there's a lot of both those guys.
Yeah. It's young superstar players that are on this path. You're like, league winners. And you're like, nope, actually, you're not going to get anything from either one of them hardly. And so he could be that, but you don't have to pay that price right now in fantasy leagues. And you get good news that it looks like he might actually play. It's like, okay, maybe the play is right now, draft Devontae Williams and not Breece Hall now.
Maybe. I mean, I loved Williams when that injury hit. Right before that injury hit, we always do our dynasty running back ranks. He was like my second or third. I mean, I thought he has a great future ahead of him. And we know in Denver, it's very clear what Sean Payton wants to do. I mean, they want to run the ball with a power back, and they're paying McGlinchey and paying the guard and trying to take things off Wilson's plate. So I was investing in P. Ryan heavy, just counting on Javonte not to be himself. But I'm real curious how this goes the next couple of weeks.
I never felt good about paying a lot for P. Ryan too. So when you're talking ADP, maybe Javonte Williams is a really solid play, sort of a post-hype sleeper for your fantasy leagues right now. And Sean Payton loves throwing the ball to his running backs too.
I was thinking that too. He's also a very accomplished receiver, good in protection. I mean, if he's back, that's a bit of a game changer for the Broncos in a good way that I didn't count on.
All right, Matt, I combed through some more tape from week one of the preseason, and I know it's a small sample, but I've got some big ideas, especially about one future superstar in the NFL.
Future superstar.
Thank you so much, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you are an everydayer and sub up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Okay, Matt. So I went through, watched a lot of the quarterbacks again because I'd kind of seen glimpses and pictures here and there. And, you look at the box scores, and I wanted to go back and really, because this is a fun time of year. You really get to see new players in new places for the first time. And so I went back and watched Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And, I was locked in and watched multiple times and combed through every single snap and every single step and bit of footwork from Trey Lance, and looking at some Jordan Love and looking at young quarterbacks around the league, especially, and some other young players, and see what they look like in their new digs, right? And so,
like Kenny Pickett,
and like Anthony Richardson been playing him. Kenny Pickett, he was one of them. He impressed me. Loved what I saw. Good. Kenny Pickett playing with timing and rhythm, looked like a veteran quarterback, looked like a guy who played 4 years of college football, right? Stepping up in the pocket when he needed to. He doesn't have the wow tools that some other guys had, but I liked it. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a game manager-y career, what it's going to end up looking like for him. He's got some traits. He's got a fine arm. I don't know about the two gloves thing. He's got some athleticism too. He's going to be a Kirk Cousins type career, Kirk Cousins plus. Is he never going to get to that level even? I have no idea. He's not the traitsiest guy, but you watch him play year two. It's like, it looks like an NFL quarterback. It looks like a starting quarterback. And some quarterbacks he drafted in the first round, you can't say that about, by the time they get to their year two training camp. So that was exciting. Kenny Pickett was one of them, and I was impressed. I liked what I saw from Kenny Pickett.
I didn't expect you to throw me that bone, but I also don't think he's your future superstar, is he?
No, he is not my future superstar. And the numbers weren't great for Anthony Richardson through an early interception. Oh, I am all in, Matt. Like,
I am too.
The Panthers screwed up. He was 1.1. This is a small sample. It's too early to really put this on him. But I saw the important things that I wanted to see from Anthony Richardson. You never know until you see a guy in the NFL and what he looks like. And, obviously we knew the height, weight, speed, arm is crazy. And you see that out there. You see the easy velocity. He's putting balls where other guys can't. A beautiful corner route he threw. The receiver wasn't able to catch it. But I mean, it's like, okay, this is star level talent physically, yes. But 1 year starter in college, you're skeptical, right? And there was a reason why he wasn't the first pick in the draft. And really was drafted about as high as anyone could have expected. Right. It reminds me a lot of when Patrick Mahomes came out. I'm not calling him the next Patrick Mahomes or anything like that, but remember the Mahomes evaluation. It was like, there was reasons why GMs around the league and evaluators are like, I don't know what to do with this guy. One team saw the talent. It was like, there's too much talent here. And even like the day before the draft, there were back in 2017, there were mock drafts that had Patrick Mahomes going in the 20s, going in the top around 2 even, like everyone knew he was rising, but nobody knew where to put him. It was the same kind of thing this year with Anthony Richardson. It's like, where's he going to go in the draft? Is he going to go late? Is he going to fall? Like we saw some of the quarterbacks last year. And no, there was one team that was really convicted and believed in him. And the talent is obvious. And it was just, there was too much talent there. and he ended up going number 4 overall. And I watched him, and I saw the important things. He's not ready there yet. He is not fully formed. He is still raw, but I was impressed by his comfortability in the pocket, how quickly he was ready to throw the football. And it wasn't a pretty stat line necessarily, but you put all the physical tools together with a guy who clearly has a grasp on what's happening on his offense, is ready to throw the ball even before his receiver breaks, anticipation, some things from the pocket that I saw that were clues. It wasn't fully formed again, but I saw the pieces to go with his physical ability. And it was like, this guy might be a big problem for a long time in the NFL. I was impressed, and I'm all in. I'm all in on Anthony Richardson.
I am too. Just to add a couple things to that, I know his completion percentage was terrible at Florida. I get that. But much like Lamar early in his career, after Lamar's rookie year, I went back and watched every throw. And there's a misconception, frankly, there's a stereotype for some of these athletic quarterbacks too, because sometimes when Lamar would miss, it was like he threw it the 4th row. Like, I mean, they're bad misses, which isn't any different than just off the fingertips when it's all said and done. And Richardson has some of those too. Like, whoa, where did that one come from? I mean, he hit the mascot like in Major League. You know what I mean? Like, there's some of those, and they're hard to get around, but they count the same in the end. And I think with his gifts, and by all accounts, work ethic, toughness, maturity, competitiveness are all there. Trust me. I know a couple that know him that say the kid's great. We've seen Hurts, Dak, Josh Allen getting more accurate at the NFL level. Like when I was a scout, you really think someone's going to get more accurate at the NFL level? I mean, it's just going to get harder. Well, now with all the sports science and quarterback coaches, they do. I mean, that has changed 180 degrees. So we know he has tools, and if he has the work ethic, I think his completion percentage will be much higher 2 years from now than it is now, and not to mention the coach knows exactly how to groom him along in a Jalen Hurts-like manner. And he's not, to be frank, in a horrific organization or situation. It's not Washington from a couple of years ago where you're just swimming upstream and have little chance to succeed. I mean, right. He's in a good spot.
Just make sure Jim Irsay is not a part of the negotiations when you're trying to find him his next contract. So I was really impressed, and you might have to look a little bit harder because of there's some rough edges for sure, and that's to be expected. But I saw the clues I needed to see with Anthony Richardson to really believe he's going to be a really good NFL player inside and outside the pocket. And just seeing him flick the ball down the field is like, yeah, he's special ability. So Colts fans should absolutely be excited. And look, It's too small of a sample. I can't really make big conclusions. I believe in Anthony Richardson. It still has to happen. Some of the other quarterbacks, the sample's too small. Like Bryce Young. It's like, I don't know. He looks okay. It's too early. Like, I'm not going to say he's good or bad. It's just too early for those guys. And it's too early for Richardson to put anything crazy on him. But I just felt different watching him than watching these other quarterbacks.
Do you agree that if, I mentioned Washington or whoever, could have their pick now on August 16th of any of these quarterbacks, and you were the GM of Team X, the Team Peacocks, would you take Richardson over Stroud and Bryce Young to build around? I would.
Oh, right now I absolutely would. Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I thought that Panthers were crazy trading up for Bryce Young anyway, just because he has to be so. Because here's the difference in Richardson and Young. Young has to be so great at the other stuff because physically he's just good, and so he has to have that, and he showed that playmaker ability in college. It's like, okay, you take a guy. Yeah. To be honest with you, it's kind of I used the Mahomes connection earlier just because of the draft process, and some teams didn't know what to do with it. I'm sure the grades on Richardson were just wildly different between teams, and the one team that believes in him might pay off for them. It might be actually more like what we saw with the Tua Herbert thing, because the Alabama quarterback and then the more toolsy quarterback that goes later ends up being the better quarterback. Some of our Dolphins fans, listeners might disagree with that still. I think it was Dave that wanted to bet us a box of Built Bars about those two quarterbacks. But, you see the physicality, and if it hits for the guy who's got the bigger talent, there's less margin for error because Tua has to be so good on time. He has to be able to make plays, and everything else has to be great because his physical ability is only good. Whereas, and it's the same, I would say it's a very similar story for Bryce Young, but for Anthony Richardson, everything else only has to be good because his other ability is great.
So I'm not picking on Young, but I think you said you went back and watched him too. And I cringed every time he took a hit. Like, please get up. I hope you're okay. It's like Tua whenever he's taking hits now. Like, oh, I hope he's all right.
If Young, and this isn't to bash Young, he might be a really good quarterback.
He might be, yeah.
Again, you have to believe that everything else is going to be such high level because he does. When you look at all the best quarterbacks in the NFL, he doesn't match up athletically with the top guys. Athletically, he doesn't match up physically, stature wise, which is maybe not a big deal. Maybe it is. I don't know. And then, arm wise, he doesn't match up with the top guys. So you're believing he's just extra special with all the other stuff, and he might be. And it'll take some time with a young quarterback to see that because that's not as easy. It's not going to pop off the tape like some of the ability Anthony Richardson has. So maybe I'm getting duped by some of those things, and maybe I'm getting duped by Justin Fields because I really believe in him. But Fields didn't show this level of anticipation and ability in the pocket to throw on time like Anthony Richardson has done already in his first preseason game, which is really the thing that has me excited.
Yeah, and we often talk about the super, led by Pat Mahomes, the superheroes at quarterback, Allen, and all these guys that are just rare physical specimens. And to me, that makes the NFL go round. You almost need one of those guys to be a consistent competitor. And maybe he doesn't hit, but Richardson has a better chance to be that guy, the superhero, than Young. Well, I guess he could be Mighty Mouse. Maybe.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually
that's not nice necessarily, but that's kind of who he has to be to win. He's Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, good stuff. Let us know what you guys think. Did you see any future superstars in the small sample? We're making too big of proclamations here after one preseason game. We're going to double our sample size, Matt, here in preseason week 2 for some of these players. And I can't wait. And we'll talk about some of our favorites to watch upcoming this week and get your mailbag questions, topics, statements into us on the YouTube comments or on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.